The Taliban is now threatening war with Iran. And they're doing so with the weapons that Joe Biden left behind in Afghanistan. Now, I don't know if this was intentional. I guarantee you some people are going to say it was intentional. I guarantee in some of the, maybe not in the U.S., but in some of these countries, they're going to be like, America left behind the weapons so that the Taliban would attack our great motherland, Iran. Regardless, it's happening right now, folks. The Taliban is already having shooting wars with Iran. All those tanks and military vehicles and guns, they rolled right up to Iran. They brought them up to the Iranian border with Afghanistan, and they're already engaging in firefights with Iranian forces. This is over a water dispute. And we could actually see a real war start up between Iran, which is a major enemy of the United States, and the Taliban, which is at least a former enemy of the United States. I don't know where they fall right now. Very bizarre situation to be in. I never thought I'd see it, but here we are. Well, I mean, Iran and Afghanistan, they've hated each other for a very long time. So maybe it should have been expected. In fact, they've hated each other since at least the 1970s and 80s. The Taliban has hated the Iranian regime since the Iranian Revolution. But let me show you what it says. Task and purpose. It says a gunfight broke out between Iranian border guards and the Taliban fighters along the border between Iran and Afghanistan this weekend. Fighting killed 3 people in the biggest escalation between the two countries over water, and the Taliban brought out a big gun to help. It says a video post on social media offered an up-close view of the skirmish inside an unexpected place, a Humvee kitted with an M240 machine gun, which is a heavy machine, or light, I think it's a light machine gun technically. It says if that looks familiar, it's because those are some of the pieces of military equipment captured by the Taliban, the ones that Joe Biden so nicely left behind for them, now put into use for fighting other parties. Iran, another enemy of the United States. And notes further in, the fighting between the two nations broke out amid political fights over water rights. Drought has been a serious issue in Afghanistan for the last 3 years. The Helmand River flows from Afghanistan into Iran and is dammed on the Afghan side, meaning the Afghans technically control it. Earlier in May, Iranian President Raisi called on the Taliban not to restrict the flow of water. And apparently the Taliban says, make me. And so now they're going at it. It's going to be a bizarre situation because, at least for the Iranian regime, and in regards to how they would view something like this, it's going to play very closely to the memories of the Mujahideen fighting the Soviets. If you want to watch a very funny movie, funny in that things have changed so much, go and watch Rambo 3. I'm not even joking. Aside from being a great action movie where Rambo plays chicken with a Russian helicopter and a tank, he also fights alongside the Mujahideen against the Soviets, and the movie actually is dedicated to the brave Mujahideen fighting the Soviets. Because at the time, if you remember, the United States was providing weapons to the Mujahideen, many of whom later became the Taliban, including Osama bin Laden, notably, fighting against the Soviets. And the Iranian regime, being basically a proxy of the former Soviet Union, was, of course, aware of this as well, and they've been enemies of the Taliban ever since. There were very complicated religious wars in that region. Even ISIS, technically, is against both Syria and against Iran. It's very complicated. It's not the way most people might imagine it. And so for Iran, they're going to watch this and it'll be like, America has done it again. They have once again armed the former Mujahideen against our forces. And here we are now. And Joe Biden, whether intentionally or not, is the quiet hand behind it. We'll see where it goes, folks. We will see where it goes. But yeah, a lot of us were wondering where those weapons were going to go and what they're going to be used for. Apparently now we know. They're going to be used to fight the Iranian regime on our behalf. Something else big. Former President Donald Trump has announced the first day he is in office, he is going to end birth tourism. Now, take it for what you will. He said this previously. It never happened. But he's saying now, day one, he's going to do it. Let me show you the video where he explains some of this. I'll pull that up for you. And I'll explain why it matters. Then we'll go into questions. So again, if you have questions, leave them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as we do the jump fully to Epic TV. This is President Donald Trump. And in a video posted on his Team Trump Twitter page, Trump said he will end birth tourism on his first day in office. Let me show you.
As part of my plan to secure the border on day one of my new term in office, I will sign an executive order making clear to federal agencies that under the correct interpretation of the law, going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship.
Now, of course, I don't know how that's going to win brownie points with, Mexican-American voters and others, many of whom actually have been leaning more towards Trump. There's a funny divide in Latin American communities, and I know because I have a lot of friends and actually a lot of family who are Latin American. Actually, probably half my cousins are half Mexican. And because a lot of my family married, of course. But, one issue you have is that if you're an immigrant, well, an illegal alien, right? You've entered the country illegally, you've snuck across the border, and you're a pregnant woman, or you're a man and you get a woman pregnant. The baby that is then born on American soil, even if you and your wife or girlfriend or whatever else are illegal, you have entered the country illegally, you're breaking the country's laws, and you have a kid here. That kid will become an American citizen at birth. And there are a lot of people who come here just to give birth. It's not just, Mexico and stuff. A lot of countries do it. There's even like birth hotels for this type of stuff. In fact, there was one of them busted in LA years ago. It was a Chinese run one where people were, they provided services. When we come here, they give birth to their infants. The infants become American citizens. And then through chain migration, they can then begin bringing their whole families to the United States. It's one of the underhanded ways that you can migrate to the U.S. and get American citizenship. Notably, you can also become an American citizen by joining the military, funny enough. A lot of people don't know that. But Trump is saying he's going to end that. And if he ends that, that ends the incentive to it ends one of the main paths to citizenship if you're an illegal alien. And he's assuming, I think, that by ending that, it removes one of the main ideas that if you come here long enough, you can get chain migration, citizenship, or you can find a way to, basically stay here. And we'll see if that ever happens. It could actually cost him at the polls with Mexican-American voters, and especially people whose parents are illegal, but who are themselves American citizens. I know a few like that. I have some Mexican friends, for example, who are American citizens and their parents were illegal, and they're actually relatively pro-Trump. We'll see how it affects them. But regardless, I do believe personally, on a personal note, in strong borders and basically maintaining the standards of normal immigration, legal immigration. And even with that, America is one of the most open countries on the face of the planet. And we get a bad reputation somehow despite that fact. America has some of the most open immigration policies of any other country on the face of the earth. In fact, ironically, Canada has like the immigration policies that Trump wanted to adopt, which is merit-based immigration. And, they don't get called, orange Nazi and stuff like that. So there's a lot of politics involved in these narratives, and America gets, I think, a much worse reputation than it deserves with these things. But take it for what you will. Of course, the elections are still coming, and it's campaign season, so a lot's going to be going on, and we'll be covering that.